What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. I'm sure you've heard that all of the cards from the Japanese Starbirth set have been revealed, and today myself and my friend Reddy are going to discuss one of those cards, Manaphy, and talk about some pre-existing cards and decks. The Manaphy is going to help realize their full potential. So we're going to be talking about a lot of single prize decks today, spoiler alert, and this new bench barrier ability that has been reprinted on the Manaphy. But before we go into the video, first make sure that you check out Reddy's content and socials. I'll put that down in the description, and also my sponsors, PotownStore.com, where you can find PTCGO codes, and CardTrooperGames.com for physical card products, including Brilliant Stars pre-orders for 115 bucks, and you could take down the prices on both of those with code CELIO for 5% off on your orders. Also check out my standard format decks on PokemonCard.io. And also subscribe to the Beast Coast Pokemon channel, where I'm creating content over there weekly with the Beast Coast team. Without further ado, let's check out the discussion that Rahul and I had on Manaphy and some of the cards that it can help make stronger in the Brilliant Star Standard format. So in the recent Starbirth reveals, which are essentially also Brilliant Stars reveals, we got this Manaphy. And Manaphy has bench barrier printed and worded the same way as our recent Mew bench barrier back in Unbroken Bonds. So what was your reaction to seeing Manaphy in the reveals? Were you surprised that they printed a bench barrier?
Yeah, I was so we talked about this a little bit off camera, Luke, but like when they printed the original Mew, it was like right after Pikarom because we didn't have too much bench damage back then, but it was like the very subsequent set to kind of put it in check, kind of give it that like power creep or like that immediate response because I think they acknowledged immediately Pikarom was going to be crazy. Um, Maybe it was like a genuine oversight on their part that bench stamps would be crazy. I think Rapid Strike Urshifu's very, very good and has, I think, had the potential to be very good from the moment it was released. So I was pretty surprised to see Bench Barrier actually coming into the format a full year later.
Yeah. We weren't talking about this earlier, but um it's no coincidence that this is printed in January, because Mew rotates out for Japan in January.
Oh, that would make some sense, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it until just now, but yeah. So but when they printed Mew in Unbroken Bonds, it wasn't like a rotation year, but it was
No.
to initially put it in for Pikarom, like you said.
Right.
And
Yeah.
here Japan is still, or I'm not sure if they are still today or if the rotation already happened by now. I know they just had a massive tournament, and I think tag teams and everything were still in it.
Yeah, I think I
Um
saw like ADP in the finals or
I
something. I
think
don't
I
know.
saw that too. Yeah. So so they still have team up on roughly
Okay.
until sometime this month. I don't know their exact rotation date, but they'll
Yeah,
be
yeah.
going to D and on just like we are and have been playing for a while now. So yeah, I think that the Manaphy print was purposeful because they're like, oh, nobody wants to play without a bench barrier, and we're just over
That makes a lot
here.
of sense, actually.
We're just over here like, oh yeah, I wonder why no one would want to play without it.
That's why our metagames are so wildly different.
Yeah. Yeah. So Manaphy, I was happy to see it being printed because
No, absolutely.
I've been thinking of like some more in-depth ways that single prizers could come back, like maybe like an expert belt kind of reprint, or choice
Sure.
band, like we essentially got a choice band reprint called
Yeah, yeah.
choice belt coming. So yeah, I'm really happy about Manaphy, because even though I've seen people upset about the reprint because it's like so simple, it's like slap this down and now you can't hit me on the bench, but I'm happy because it adds more deck variety, and it's a choice at least to add this into your deck.
Yeah, the format felt like a little bit stale, like across the board because of how polarizing some strategies were. And having Manaphy, like you said, it's a choice. And it's also, I think, going to shift deck building in a certain way because I think recovery wasn't as strongly emphasized in lists. But now by playing this like one of tech card and potentially other tech cards, recovery might be a little more important. And lists might not be as linear and a little less focused on just pitching and keep going, and maybe we'll see cards like Clara and the new Roseanne supporter like make their way into lists.
Yeah, exactly what I was thinking about, like Ordinary Rod. Like I've been considering Ordinary Rod or Rescue Carrier or the new Roseanne card in like most of the lists that I'm drafting right now
Mm-hmm.
that are including Manaphy for the Brilliant Stars format. So yeah, I 100% agree with that. So not the card, while it doesn't have depth itself, it adds depth to the game and deck building
Absolutely.
inadvertently, like way more than you can imagine just by glancing
Yeah.
at the card. So
Um,
we talked about Manaphy enough. Was there anything else you wanted to add on the card before we go into some other stuff?
the only small thing I guess is the 10 extra HP as well. I
Yeah.
think that definitely makes it a lot better than Mew, just because you can't meta jam it with two pings. You have to have that third/fourth ping, so it makes it a little more annoying for these snipe style decks to take it out as well.
Absolutely. I think that's huge because in the POG 2021 format, so pre-rotation but
Yeah,
after
yeah,
Evolving Skies, Mew almost felt like bait to play down because of
yes,
Metacham V. It was so easy to just either have an Inteleon plus Scoop Up Net or two Inteleons plus
yeah,
Metacham. And it's a lot less realistic to have a third Inteleon or a Zigzagoon or something like that to do
yeah,
it all in one turn. And then at that point, it gives you, like, if you have healing cards in your deck, you can choose to heal the Manaphy. You can even attach a toughness cape to it, like
hmm
after it gets pinged, whereas Mew had no recovery from that because of its low HP. So super happy about the extra HP as well. It seems like it was a purposeful choice.
no, absolutely, yeah,
Word, word. All right, yeah, so let's get into some cards. So today what we're going to be talking about, Rahul has brought three cards with him today, three ideas of cards or decks that are from pre-Brilliant Stars. They currently
hmm
already exist in the standard format, and I have also selected three cards or decks that already existed in standard format. And we're going to talk about how Manaphy enhances the potential of these specific cards. Rahul and I both agreed that it was probably redundant to talk about the negative effects of
yeah.
Manaphy because Urshifu and Jolteon obviously don't want Manaphy in the game.
They'll be fine. Like they're just gonna like drop down like half a tier.
Yeah.
Like they're still gonna be good decks. It's not like they're gonna be like binder bait again. They're still like playable decks. It's just they're not gonna be as dominant.
Right. Yeah. You never saw Pikarom drop off
Yeah,
because Mew existed, right? It's
not at
Guzma
all.
the Mew or Boss the Mew and get back to business. So
Exactly.
it slows them down. You know, like even if that's what happens, even if now Rapid Strike Urshifu or Jolteon has to boss the Manaphy and then start its game plan, it gives that single prize deck or that deck with evolution support an extra turn to do its thing.
hmm
So yeah, let's get into the first card you wanted to talk about that Manaphy helps out.
Yes, sir. So, my first choice is a little bit obvious, and I feel like this is probably the biggest like card that everyone might be looking at. It's Flappy. Now, when Flappy came out in Evolving Skies, it was probably one of the more hyped cards. It was probably one of the more hyped cards for me because Dynamotor has always been good in every format it's existed in some capacity. But it was the first format we had Dynamotor released without like a bench like protection, and we also have like very polarizing snipes right now. The one prizers that Flaffy can be paired with are actually very strong. There's
Hmm.
that Zapdos that does 160. There's the Zekrom that paralyzes, and we get a new Raichu V as well. That like you can just flood the board and use that card to finish the game
Hmm.
if you need to. So I think like Electric Box as a whole is going to be very very strong because now like a majority of your deck is like Level Ball, Quick Ball, Searchable. You don't actually even need to play Ultra Ball in this deck. Um, and then I think the new Cynthia supporter also like makes the deck much more feasible because that one extra card when you get knocked out makes a huge difference. And with two Flappies and a Manaphy on your bench, that's all you need, really. Like
Yeah.
you're vibing.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Flaffy Box. Like it was it was to a point in this format. Like I think I saw some people take it to in real life events. I know Azul posted a video, maybe did a stream or two with it. I've tried it out a few times and this it almost gets there like in current
Yes, it's so
standard.
close.
It's so close. Yeah, I feel that way about a lot of the cards we'll talk about today. But yeah, I like you said, the Zekrom is busted. A single prize Pokemon
Absolutely.
with guaranteed paralysis. That's like if you've played Pokemon for a long time, you know guaranteed paralysis is insane.
Especially in a format where like we don't have that many switching cards being played because there
Mhm.
isn't these kinds of effects.
Yeah. And then the Zapdos does 160 to any V Pokemon.
Hmm.
And then, like you said, the new Raichu can be like your end game blow up. You can have Boltund, V, maybe even Tapu Koko V slash V Max, even
Yeah,
add in like with some
absolutely.
1/1 lines. There's a lot to do with it. And it could be a cool deck. And even like Double V can be a late game. So much stuff to do with that kind of
Sure.
box.
As soon as
Um,
Flappy gets to stay alive, you can do something.
yeah,
This is
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, for sure. And this is also a deck that naturally wants to play Rescue Carrier anyway.
oh yeah,
So like one or two rescue carriers in there if you're expecting the metagame to still have a lot of bench sniping, because that also gets back your Mareeps and Flaffies and stuff like that, in addition to the Manaphy. So yeah, I'm totally on board with Flaffy, and I do hope it comes out and is some influences some interesting decks when it has a bench barrier to use with it. All right, so what was your next card?
oh, you want me to go all three? All right, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'll do it. So my next one is, it's like I'm gonna kind of like cheat here. I'm gonna
Mhm.
use my card as Frostmoth, from Sword and Shield,
Yeah.
but the pairing is also with like the V Unions. So this Frostmoth is like one of the more important cards. I think this is another like Energy Accelerator potential card that didn't see its full life because it didn't have something good to pair with it for the longest time. Yes, we had Lapras, but as soon as we got cards like Lapras, they weren't doing enough. And then we got these really cool cards like Greninja V Union
Hmm.
and maybe other other good like water type attackers, and they didn't get to see any light of day. But now that we can actually like bench protect, we can use Greninja V Union. We can use like once you pull up the attack, I think the attack is like really really good.
It's really
One
funny
that
because I'm trying to pull it up on Limitless and it only gives me one corner at a time.
yeah,
This is the worst mechanic ever. Are you talking
this
about the
one.
one?
Twister Shuriken's pretty good. The other one's got the 130 that you just showed. Like,
Yeah,
there's a lot of like really like versatile effects that Greninja can do. You can slot in cards like Suicune super easily. Like,
yeah,
it's again, it's another toolbox style deck. And so far, every water thing we've seen is like either a Suicune deck or an Ice Rider deck, and they have to be Melanie based. But now you're
yeah,
given a chance where you don't have to make it Melanie based. And yeah, the Waterfall Bind is also really insane because you get to do the 180, and they literally can't move.
yeah,
So you're sticking something in the active. You can play Energy Disruption in here if you want to. We get Ultra Ball, so it makes V Union hitting the discard way easier,
yeah,
and you get to see like again like cards like the new Cynthia's, like Capacious Bucket, like all these cards already exist. The engine is super easy to play with the Manaphy already being in there. Again, like you said, Level Ball slash Rescue Carrier like potential is already there as well. You can just kind of get everything you need because you probably want to set up as quickly as possible.
yeah.
And then bada bing, bada boom. I
Yeah,
think V
Ultra
Unions.
Ball is huge for V Unions.
Yeah, I think V Unions will actually see some semblance of play if people put some time into it. Not like a tier one deck by any means, but
Yeah.
it's a deck that I would like to work on for
Yeah,
sure.
it's been absolute 0% play right now. Maybe it
Yeah,
can tick up into like the tier 3 rogue kind of situation. I'm sure there's other water cards that Frostmoth can work with as well. There might be some kind of like Flaffy has the electric single prize stuff. There might be
yeah,
some water stuff like that for Frostmoth too.
absolutely. Stuff that like probably we can like just go like someone can sit down one day and search through all the water type attackers,
Yeah.
or just like water types in general, and like kind of piece together a toolbox that could surprise a local metagame that could kind of come in and do some damage.
Yeah, especially if like let's say the Charizard V Star ends up being good because they're throwing fire support at us like that. Hey,
Yeah,
that's a reason to do that. But yeah, Frostmoth itself was a card that people thought was like so juiced up. Like they're like, "Oh my god,
yeah,
this is insane. Like as many water energy as we want from our hand. This is crazy. The only thing is it has to be on the bench, but it's a stage 1." People were so excited because it's Blastoise Rain Dance but on a stage 1. You don't need rare candy. Like this is going to be
yeah.
so good. And then the more pessimistic people like myself were like, we're probably keeping it in the binder, unfortunately. And at that time we had ADP, we had Dragapult,
Dedenes, everyone was fast.
everything was so fast. Yeah. So
Yeah,
hopefully Manaphy is one of the things that can help us slow down a little bit.
yeah. Okay, and my third and final card is one that is like kind of yeah. Luke's already typing it out. It's Lycanroc. It's like one of those cards that like as soon as like a B like Vespiquen style like B Revenge style card gets announced, the world is like, hey Rahul, like you're gonna wake up to like 40 Twitter notifications because everyone's tagging you, and I'm like, did something happen last night? And it's a new Vespiquen, and I really wanted to make Lycanroc work, but unfortunately, like with all the bench sniping and all that stuff, like single prize decks did not have the reach they needed. But fighting is a super good typing right now in the game. You can get like 2 fighting energies onto Lycanroc is super easy. You can play like a Raihan engine if you want to. You can play just like Houndoom as a single strike engine if you want to. 4/4 Houndoom just means more Pokemon. This is just a very easy thing. More damage with this fusion, or not fusion strike, single strike energy, and you get the new choice helmet as well. Like this is like a crazy amount of damage that you just added to this deck out of nowhere, and you have Karen's Conviction as well as a I think that's what it's called. The one
Yeah,
that adds more damage. So that's in there too. And you can have like other tech single strike attackers. I just have to kind of dig through and see what could be good.
yeah.
So like a single,
The more Pecco is a
there's
big
yeah,
one.
more Pekko's a good typing. Abomasnow gives you more HP if you want to be a little more sustainable. I don't know how like good that'll be. I'm just gonna try to load as many Pokemon into a deck as I can.
Right,
Um,
right.
but it could be like a good like 1/1/2/2 line to slot in. Um, just make your whole board a little bit beefier. And Manaphy is like a very easy inclusion as well, because I feel like in a deck like this, you're going to play like 4 level balls pretty easily, just because all your babies are going to need level balls to search. And you're
And
going
you
to
have
just
Ultra
kind of
Ball too, which discards more Pokemon.
exactly.
Yeah, so
So Lycanroc might be like, I think Lycanroc and Wormadam, like the Be Revenge kind of decks might actually like be legitimately good, unironically, like especially with the new Farfetch'd as well that does 20+10 for each damage counter on the active.
yeah, and I think a lot of people, including myself, will sometimes look at a single prizer and think, well, how realistic is it that we can one-shot a VMAX? Now, I'm sure you can sometimes, like maybe once a game or once every 2 games, get up to a one-shot. You have single strike energies, choice belt, Karen's Conviction, etc. But if they're not knocking out 2 Pokemon at a time, then we don't
Yeah.
need to one-shot them. That's the
No,
thing.
absolutely not. Yeah, like you can get these 2 shots off as you please. Once the initial setup is done too, you just need to like either chain bosses or like hit whatever's in the active spot, because most decks can't produce a 3rd or 4th VMAX.
Yeah, yeah, because like prior it was like, okay, well I need to prepare to hit Rapid Strike Urshifu, the best deck in the game, and they're gonna knock out 2 things at a time, almost like ADP, and I have to race them. But now with Manaphy around,
Exactly.
that doesn't have to happen anymore. Um, of course, there's still like things like Dragapult VMAX. Okay, we'll deal with Dragapult VMAX is manageable. That gets around Manaphy, but it's very manageable.
Yeah,
Um,
that one feels okay because you have the more Pekko, like you said, and also like uh the V stars, those are actually one-shottable. Like
oh
it's
yeah,
a little
that
more difficult,
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
but you can get there. Like that one feels like you can do it.
Yeah, V
Um,
stars are ranging from 250 to 280, I believe.
yeah.
So
So unless like
that's just a bulky GX kind of.
exactly. And you could like, I don't know. If we get too fancy, you could like slot in like a one of Tool Scrapper or something too, if like capes and big charms get more popular or whatever. But
Mhm.
I like think there need to be a lot of change in the meta for that to actually happen. But I do think like us talking about single prizes like this does mean that single prizers will have life just
Mhm.
purely thanks to Manaphy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And also just on the V star notion, the tankiest V stars at the moment are Charizard and Arceus. Arceus is weak to fighting, so regardless if you want to build the new Wormadam line, they are grass, metal, and fighting. So you
Which
have,
are surprisingly good typings,
yeah,
actually.
pretty good typings. And then
I
Lycanroc also fighting.
yeah,
And then Charizard VMAX starts at 280, but if you're using the new stadium, it damages itself. So it brings
correct.
it down to 260 or even 240 after 2 attachments. So those numbers, like you said, are definitely manageable for sure.
Yeah, the only like problem deck could potentially be like the Shadow Rider slash
Whimsicott.
Whimsicott deck if they just start chaos wheeling you.
Hmm.
But Houndoom pulls from the deck for this, especially so you can kind of get that more Pekko play,
Hmm.
or just like try to 2-shot the Whims, or and then with Wormadam you probably lose. Go next.
Wormadam maybe plays like Raihan for basic energy, Raihan basic energy.
We could try it.
Yeah.
If
uh,
If people start playing Whimsicott for the intent of chaos wheeling, which I think they should.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, Chaos Wheel's the best attack on it, for sure.
Yeah.
Whatever it's called. All right, so let's go over to my cards that I selected to talk about today. The first one is kind of a rabbit hole. It's so
Yeah.
Zoroark from Evolving Skies. When we're talking about Zoroark from Evolving Skies, we are talking about this card, but we're also really talking about like 100 other cards at the same time. Because
Fair.
Zoroark has Phantom Transformation. Once a turn, you can choose a Stage 1 Pokemon from the discard and replace it with Zoroark. and you discard all cards attached to this Zoroark and put the chosen Pokemon in its place. So basically, you can discard like 4 different stage 1s on turn 1 with your research, on turn 2 evolve Zoroark, and then pick which one you want for the situation. I
Yep.
think this could definitely work in the Wormadam thing we were talking about.
Absolutely.
But the one, I think the only place I've seen it succeed was Alex Shemansky's Duraludon VMAX list. He
I remember
played,
that.
yeah, he played Chinchino's, Zoroark's, Bronzong, and then the Abomasnow to give Duraludon more HP without any Snovers. He just played like 2 Bronzong and 1 Abomasnow, and then like a 3/3 Zoroark, 4/4 Chinchino, or maybe other way around. And that was doable because that was a deck that already autoed Rapid Strike because
Yep.
Duraludon just autos Rapid Strike. And I think it's probably in theory that deck was pretty good against Jolteon too, just because it's so
Mhm.
tanky and Jolteon doesn't do a lot of damage. But other than that, this card looks like it has an incredible amount of potential. So I'm already thinking like we have the new Bieber roll that's coming out. That's
That
basically
card's
Abyssal
insane.
Hand. That
That card's
card,
like
I'm trying to stop myself from putting it in every deck I'm trying to build.
I feel like it's going to be like single like I think I saw Zul's tweet or something where it's like I just saw Bieber roll and choice like helmet. Like you guys have no excuse to not try to make single prizers work. And I'm
Yep.
like, I agree. Like you have 2 of like the biggest pieces plus Manaphy, of course. Like 3 of the biggest things that single prizers were missing for the longest time. Yes, if you maxes have a bajillion HP, but like that shouldn't stop you from potentially 2-shotting still. Like single prizers never were meant to 1-shot.
Yeah, like we're almost back to where we were in 2017-18 when we had Mew or Mr. Mime plus Octillery plus Choice Band plus
Oh,
etc.
in like every deck. It was
Yeah.
no compressor still. We just had Acro Bike, which was the only difference.
Yeah. But yeah, so we have the new Beaver roll, we have Chinchino already, we have the Altaria that puts a supporter on top, which I
Very
think
good card.
should be good, you know.
In theory, that card should be pretty insane.
And a bunch of other cards that Zora can transform into. I mentioned a couple with Shemansky's Duraludon deck, but these are all things that are now possible to be good because of Manaphy. Of course, you could have played them, but in a competitive tournament, you're probably going to walk into like 2 to 4 sniping decks in
Yeah.
your 9 Swiss rounds that just render you useless because they clear your board. But now with Manaphy around, we have this card that has the potential to do a lot of things. You can play, let's say you wanted to play a 3/3 Bieber roll line in your deck, which could be reasonable. But instead, we
Sure.
make it 2/2 Bieber roll with 2/2 Zoroark. And then we also throw in like an Altaria, because Altaria can set the supporter to the top, then draw it with Bieber roll. And then we set in some other one of tech stage 1 Pokemon. I was already looking at the new Claydol for. I know I don't want to talk about Brilliant Stars cards today, other than the Manaphy, but we
Sure.
already
Yeah. Yeah.
talked about Wormadam, so we'll throw it in there. I was already looking at the new Claydol from Brilliant Stars. If you're playing like a Whimsicott deck with
Sure.
basic and then the new double energy, because this does 180 if you and your opponent have the same bench size, which is
Sure.
actually really good on a stage 1, because even if you have the double turbo and that's 160, you're still one-shotting just about anything that's weak to you. If it's rapid strike or single strike Urshifu, then I think you need a choice belt if you have the double turbo as well on. But yeah, the possibilities are borderline endless with Zoroark. So I'm really excited to try some things with this when we have a bench barrier.
I agree. I mean, this card's definitely going to make like besides Alex's deck, I think we saw like a Sander deck with the control.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
I forgot.
but like besides that, like those two, Zorak hasn't really seen uh any actual experimentation, and I feel like there are some very creative minds out there, more creative than myself specifically, that will probably find something that's very cool. Um, like I could expect to probably tune into like a Grant Manley stream and see like him toying around with Zorak and probably finding something crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
like 7 other stage 1s in the deck in
exactly,
Zoroark.
just because we have Manaphy
Yeah.
and Ultra Ball, but yes.
Yeah, Ultra Ball 2 is a big buff to this. I feel like half the cards we talked about so far, Ultra Ball is also a buff too, in
Yes.
addition to Manaphy. Ultra Ball is really good. I thought I
Ultra
was
plus
gonna
little
be
make single prize very good.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna be upset that we had Quick Ball and Ultra Ball at the same time, but I don't really mind it.
No, I think there's enough ball options. Like I've in some decks that I'm like even like drafting or thinking about.
Mhm.
I feel like my Ultra Ball counts like 2, just
Yeah,
because resources are so important.
I'm off topic, but I am trying to bring my Ultra Ball count up because if I put Bieberol in
Oh,
the deck, Ultra Ball feels so good because we get
yes,
to empty
yes.
the hand and then draw more cards. It's like, okay, I have a 5 card hand. I use my first Bieberol, now I dump 3 and draw 3 more. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff to be thinking about. The set's got me really hyped. The next card I want to talk about is probably my favorite card from the early Sword and Shield days, Galarian Weezing. This was the first card I experimented with when Rebel Clash released. I've played it in many iterations ever since then, and right now it's actually been doing well in
Yep,
tournaments with the Baby Hoopa Moltres deck. So for this card, we can kind of just lump all that into one Galarian Weezing
sure.
slash Hoopa slash Moltres slash whatever. And now this is a card that has been able to see success already in a Mewless, bench barrierless world, but it still has the problem of players saying, I need to dodge 2 very strong meta decks to have a shot because this is a single prize based deck and everything gets wiped off the board when I play against Urshi or Jolteon. So what do you think? Do you think that Weezing was already good enough, or do you also think that like it was an issue that this deck could be just invalidated completely by one kind of strategy?
I thought the deck was really cool. Obviously, I think neutralizing gas is a very cool ability, especially on a stage. One Pokemon in the basic has Ascension, so you've got like this very easy combo to kind of get out. But the caveat is obviously severe poison doesn't really do anything like damage wise.
Mhm.
And most Pokemon in this format have like easy enough mobility to kind of get around it. But having neutralizing gas is gonna make your way of playing, plus like Manaphy is going to make your way of playing the deck a little bit differently. You might not need to go with the full Galarian Moltres, like whatever build. You could kind of play Galarian Weezing as your wall with like Auroras or something of that nature, and all of a sudden you can play. I'm trying to brainstorm what it could be, but you could have any attacker in the back realistically.
So a
Like,
toolbox deck where Weezing
yeah,
stalls while you set up.
exactly. And
Okay,
once you have that,
yeah.
you could play like Weezing, RCS V Star,
Plus X
Togekiss.
attacker, yeah.
Yeah.
Or like even throw in the Zoroark we were just talking about, like
Yeah,
Galarian Weezing plus
exactly. Like
Zoroark plus stage ones.
it's gonna give time for some of these more setup oriented VMAXs, these setup oriented like single prizers, maybe stage 2 lines. Like the world kind of opens up to you now that your 2 like biggest auto loss matchups become 50-50s, I think I would probably
Yeah,
put it as.
at least
It's still not great.
manageable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Manaphy's not gonna like solve all of your problems against
Mhm.
those 2 matchups because they still did a ton of damage. Um it's just gonna make the game playable.
You have an out. You have like a check
Yeah,
to try to beat them. Like some games you won't get the Manaphy out and you'll lose, but at least you had a shot, you know? Like
exactly.
it's horrible going into a game knowing that if your opponent's deck like functions decently, you just lose because of game design. It's horrible. But if you have Manaphy in your deck, even if you miss it or whiff it or get it late, at least you had a shot. And
Exactly.
it creates more feel good moments than feel bad, and I think that's important, and our game has had so much feel bad since Sword and Shield.
Yeah, the way I like probably have put it is like if both players play like perfectly optimally, which isn't too difficult right now because the decks have been very like simplified.
And there's less
The
turns.
Exactly, there's like it's like the rule of 4 attacks, and if everyone plays like perfectly, then there's gonna be a certain point where it's like an inevitability. It's like I can't like put you down to 1-2 cards in hand. I'm gonna have to Marnie you, and I have to hope that you don't out of your 5 cards plus like your like Drizzle sitting in play, your like Lone Sobble sitting in play that you're gonna miss your one boss to like
Yeah.
win the game, and it just becomes a sort of inevitability. But now with like Manaphy introducing like giving the open gateway to like cards like Weezing to kind of get back into the game and become more of like a notch up from where it was. Um Beeburl being able to slot into decks like Zoroark, like you talked about, maybe these V unions like I talked about in Flappy, like all these cards are going to be able to not shake up the meta completely, but it will create like a threat level where we're back to like the best example I think I can like reminisce to is that like first initial team up metagame
Hmm.
where we had like these 3 prize tag team decks as kind of um like game closers more or less, and then you had like 2 prizers that kind of ran the show with these 1 prizers that chipped away at you but won games.
Yeah, I
Uh,
absolutely see that.
I
We
think all the V stars we've seen so far are very powerful. Like
yeah.
I like the more I've thought about it, like they've all grown on me given the context of all the other cards we've seen, and I'm like, even Shaman V-Star feels fine.
The only
Like,
one that I don't think I'll play in a deck is Glaceon V-Star,
no,
but the rest,
that one kind of
the other 5 of them, I'm already like building decks for.
yeah, like I've like thought about every single one of them, and I'm like, okay, this isn't crazy. Like the only one I think is like probably the strongest in my opinion is the Arceus, but besides that, that's just because it's splashable.
It's
Like every other
general,
card,
yeah.
yeah, like every other card feels like I can make this be like either the primary attacker or the backup attacker, and I don't have to rely on three prizers, and it feels like I'm putting these three prizers in check,
Yeah.
which
Yeah, for
is
sure.
something we have not had in I don't know, like 2.5, 3 years.
Yeah,
Like it's been a while.
since before, yeah, the last time we played real life events.
The last time I was good.
Yeah, no, but we also see it's crazy because you keep opening my mind to more similarities to Team Up on Broken Bonds era now. And I'm happy, if anything, I wanted the
Yeah.
designers to look back at early Sun and Moon, and I'll take mid Sun and Moon. That's fine too.
Yeah, that format felt super fine.
Yeah, I liked the team up format better than I liked Lost Thunder actually, but
I think
also
so too, yeah.
we have the Moltres that's very similar to Zapdos. It does a nice chunk of damage for one energy.
Yeah.
It's not the same requirement. It's not bench to active, but it's if it has a damage, it does 90 for one energy. And then you come in with your Charizard and you clean up that Pokemon, just like you would have done between Zapdos Pikarom or Zapdos Tapu Koko GX, whatever it was.
Right, yeah. We just don't have E powers to kind of buff up those one prizers, but in turn we have Choice Helmet, which kind of makes up for it, and the damage is a little bit higher than it used to be.
Mhm.
So it should be. I don't know. I'm really excited. Like as soon as this drops, like I'm ready to start brewing. And I mean, obviously, I think the first chance we get to see of this would be the team challenge like qualifiers,
Yeah.
which are not like broadcasted anywhere, which is kind of a little bit depressing. But I mean, we can see like people hopefully posting like what they
Yeah.
won with, what they did well with, and
Yeah,
that could be cool
absolutely.
to like look at because it's like a micro like league challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I think another thing for players to keep in mind is that uh this one set isn't going to miraculously fix the game if you think it
No,
needs to be fixed, or
absolutely not.
change the game. But also, I wholeheartedly believe that one set shouldn't change the game
I
that
agree.
much. Like for good or for bad, one set should not turn the game around on its head. It's just
I
not
mean, that's
healthy in
that's
any
what the
way.
problem has been, right? So far, like with every new set introduced since Battle Styles, it's felt like whatever has just been put into the metagame is being pushed out instantly, which
Hmm.
is a little bit like scary. But I really like the direction Brilliant Stars is going, where every single thing in the set does not feel like it is going to be the kingpin of the format, but instead we got all these like helping hands,
Yeah,
effectively.
yeah,
Like rather than like our Mew VMAX, which was last set, which kind of I don't know, Mew has like a 70% top cut rate, which is crazy.
yeah.
Um, and then like the two horses like pretty much reigned like free in their time.
Yeah.
And then I mean I guess Evolving Skies wasn't as crazy, but I think that format was fine. But that was also rotation.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, like you said, I thought about it the other day that RCSV Max is the poster card of the set, and I don't hate it.
No, like I've thought about. I think I forgot whose tweet I saw off the top of my head, so I'm sorry. But it was like RCS Star is like the first card of this nature that's completely colorless, and the ability is also like completely neutral. So
Hmm.
this can go into any deck and do whatever function you need it to do. It could be like your like 1/1 line that just surprises someone like at the end of the game to get your V Star ability, like, or it could be your primary attacker, and you can play it with like Charon's Care and like pick it
Yeah,
up and like keep
it's
going.
really cool in that way. And it's also, I don't want to, I know there's a whole lot of Zoroark GX haters that will jump on this one, but it's similar to Zoroark in the way that you just said. It could be there as a little bit of support. It could be a main idea of the deck, but of course its support nature is only there as a one-time use. Um,
And thank God it's not like a trade because I think if they had trade, I think we'd have to they'd be in every deck. It would just
Yeah,
literally be in every deck.
that would be the poster card that I would be upset about. But yeah,
Yeah.
Arceus VMAX is kind of like the strongest tuned up card of the set. Like this is the
Yeah.
one we're all excited about. And it's cool because I said to some of my friends yesterday, I was like, this card's obviously cracked to the moon, but how do we even build it? Like we don't even know yet.
No,
And
this is
that's
like
so cool because Mew VMAX and Genesect, they handed us the 60.
I could like on release day, obviously like as content creators, we're both gonna like get some videos out up and running, whatever. I could see like 7 different like YouTubers put out 7 different Arceus builds on day one.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
very easily. And like that's really cool because we haven't had that. Like even with Rapid Strike and Single Strike, we had like one or two ways to play it. With like
Mm-hmm.
Shadow Rider and Ice Rider, one or two ways to play it. With
Yep.
Mew, like you said, they just handed us a 60 and said go wild.
Some people played Cramomatic, some people didn't. That was the difference.
That was the difference. And Meloetta came into the picture like a week later, but
Yeah.
and now we've got this really cool card.
Yeah, for sure. And for our last card that we're going to talk about, how Manaphy helps it out in the format. I think this Malamar, obviously this Malamar is already a good card. I think it's the 14th most played deck according to Play Limitless
Wow.
in Limitless events. So it's not in the top 10 performing. It's not in the top 10 most played, but it's shy. It's out there, you know. It's in like the tier 3-ish range, I'd assume, if you look at the like performances and placements and everything. But this card, I think this card definitely gets helped, but also just every card like this that's a stage 1 single prize that looks like it can put out a lot of damage, this kind of just represents all of those. Any card that you've seen that looks like it should be able to put out a lot of damage as a stage 1 single prize, this Malamar kind of represents that, but it also, you know, represents itself because the Malamar deck is really good. But like one thing that like just game design, you know, is wrong here, like Malamar loses to Rapid Strike Urshifu.
I like realistic. I've played that matchup a couple times. Like even when I went to like that 10K or whatever in Jersey, like I thought like how explosive this deck is and how few cards it needs to one shot Urshifu, and the fact that I can still win because I theoretically like went first and I popped 2 of your guys, and then I did it again, and then I did it again, and the game ends.
Yeah.
Like that shouldn't happen. Like especially with a deck like this, because you're not one shotting every other VMAX. Like that's not happening.
Yeah.
Maybe once, but
And like, although I love Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX, like you said the other day on Twitter that Brilliant Stars made you feel the way that the Battle Styles reveal did. And I agree. Like Battle Styles like made me feel like they understood how bad the first 4 Sword and Shield sets were
oh
when
my
when
yes.
they showed Battle Styles, and that their main card Rapid Strike Urshifu actually had some decisions. It had 2 good attacks, which we hadn't been seeing
I
for a
love the
while.
card. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that card, and I also love Jolteon VMAX too. I personally have always liked damage spread, multiple knockout type deals.
Sure. Yeah.
But what sucks is I haven't been playing too much, but my mom plays in a lot of tournaments, and she's been using a lot of Jolteon Path. And like, I just see so many bad feeling moments. Like, she'll be like, oh, I won because I bossed up their Sobble and they had 2 Sobbles, so I just knocked out both of their
Win.
Sobbles
Yeah.
and they scooped because they couldn't play the game. Like,
There at that point there's like no decision being made. It's like a
right.
very much like an autopilot call, which
Mhm.
should happen sometimes, but it shouldn't be an every game thing.
Yeah, like to know that like so many games are being won just because you snipe. It's like your opponent sets up 2 answers to be able to play the game next turn, and you kill both of them, and your opponent just draws past concede. Like I
Yeah.
don't like that happening, and Manaphy stops that. So even
Yeah.
like I love Jolteon VMAX and Rapid Strike Urshifu and other cards of that nature, and Dragapult, you know, everything like that. But when those kinds of cards get to a point where they put your opponent out of the game in ways that like in the past, like toxic cards like Getsis and
Yeah.
like
No,
red
absolutely.
card, like it's almost akin to that. It
It's
obviously
very close. It's very close.
it's so it seems so different, but when you actually think about it, it's like you know, like red card, whatever, let loose, all those kinds of things just don't let your opponent play the game. Well, so does Evolve My Jolteon Boss, knock out both
Yeah.
I think I might have said Inkase, but I definitely meant Sobbles, but I guess the
No, you said
point
that.
stands here. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the point still stands here. I mean, if your opponent can only attack with 1 card in this deck, like that's kind of the thing,
Yeah.
right? Like
And
you're
now you can put a situation where it's like Sobble and Manaphy could be the 2 bench sitters, and now your
Mhm.
opponent has to make that call. Which one are you taking? Do you risk giving your opponent a playable card next turn, or do you risk setting up for the remainder of your game?
Yeah,
Um,
and that's
Like, and that's
huge.
that's actually like a very huge choice. Like that one card choice decision could impact the rest of the game in very significant ways, and that is what skill expression is, and that is what
Absolutely.
Manaphy adds to the game.
And there can actually be there, like you said, skill expression. Exactly. There's actually reasons to make that decision. You can think, okay, what did my opponent do last turn that could
Yes.
let me know if they have good cards in their hand?
Do they have a supporter? Do they have a carrier? Whatever.
Right. Dude, does that deck typically play carrier? If it doesn't, let's get
Exactly.
that Manaphy out of there. If they do, then this could be a feels bad mode where I boss up the Manaphy, kill it, and they have a carrier in hand, and I just wasted a turn. So yeah, exactly what you
Exactly.
just said. Yeah.
Which
Um,
is going to make it really exciting, and hopefully, like, and that there's like a separate conversation for closed deck lists as well versus open, which will add a different layer of skill expression with all these fun cards we're getting. But with open, it should also be interesting.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But yeah, I'm very excited because of the Starbirth slash Brilliant Star reveal, and Manaphy is definitely a big reason why I'm excited about it.
100%.
All right, well, thank you so much for being on the video with me today,
Thank you for having
Rahul.
me.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. We had some pretty I think uh similar opinions between like the battle styles plus Brilliant Stars, and then looking back to team up and
Oh,
those kinds of
yeah.
things.
I
Uh,
think I think both of us don't like necessarily like to complain too much. Like I think on the initial like seeing a couple of the cards, I'm sure we both had like a gut reaction that was like, ugh, whatever. But then like on deeper like thinking about it, it's like, well, given the context of everything, this feels fine. Like feels like we're gonna have a completely different game on our hands with existing cards like
yeah,
in a month. Like
exactly. Yeah,
it's not a completely different game because we got like a broken MUV max. It's going to be a completely different game because of a few support cards.
like this just opens up more cards from past sets. Like this is one of those sets that makes people like get out their bulk bins and take cards
Yes,
out of it. Like those are the best. Those are the
because it
best.
just make the meta progression is going to be so radically different as well, and we're going to have. And I'm excited to see that because we haven't had that since I think legitimately battle styles.
Yeah, battle styles a bit, and then even battle styles was kind of concise because a lot of the support was for one of the battle styles.
Yeah,
And then prior to that, I'd say probably the last time was either team up with Jirachi or maybe Guardians Rising. And I've seen a lot of people compare this
it's
set to
huge.
Guardians Rising
I
because it
think so too.
has the supporter search, the
Yep.
Lele reprint kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think it's got enough like uh, tools and like pieces
General
that does
things.
yeah like it feels like Guardians, which I think that was probably one of my more impactful sets in recent history for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely my number one of like the past like since Stormfront, because Stormfront's my number one all time.
That's
but
fair.
but yeah, thanks for being on the channel, Rahul. And do you
Yeah,
have anything you'd like to shout out? Let us know where we can find you on your social medias and everything.
thank you for having me, Luke. I appreciate it a ton. I'm not going to plug everything because I've got way too much stuff, but the two big ones are if you enjoy my takes and random ramblings, I'm on Twitter, twitter.com/the flea with 4 E's at the end, and then my YouTube is just my name, Rahul Reddy. You guys can find me there also making content Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays. I don't, and I'll stream eventually, but I'll do that on my own accord when I decide to stream. But
Yeah.
uh, thank you for having me. I really do enjoy doing discussions like this. It's basically a video essay, so it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun
Yeah.
to participate.
Yeah, absolutely. This was tight. And when we do get events back, hopefully it is soon. I'm sure you can see Rahul at those, and hopefully
Very excited. We do.
top cutting and playing some fun decks. Maybe saying Be Revenge, although it's not called Be Revenge anymore.
I'll bring it with me. I still bring. That's like a random fun fact. I still have my 60 like expanded Vespiquen with me in my like my deck in a deck box, regardless of if it's an expanded event or not.
You could use a Vespiquen as your V-Star marker, maybe.
Exactly.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for being on. And thank you guys for watching. Subscribe to this channel for daily Pokemon TCG content. Check out my other links and sponsors in the description down below. And we'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.